Big welcome, everyone. It's really, really great to see you all online tonight. Firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. So thank you everyone for coming along to tonight's Ask Me Anything. This session is designed to highlight why and how women build VC backable businesses. My name's Nina. I'm the Growth and Scouting Associate here at Antler in Australia. Also in this call are Rani and Rachel from the Scouting and Program team here at Antler. So tonight we'll have Rani, our community manager, sitting down with our portfolio company founder who has successfully built, launched and scaled her company with Antler, Alexis from Sorted. Also, just to let everyone know, for those of you who are here for the first time, this is actually the second edition of our AMA series. We'll have 2 more AMA sessions to shed more light on the tech founders that we back and the value of building with a co-founder. So please count yourselves in on those as well. And I hope to see you all there. So you're in for a treat tonight. We'll start the session with an introduction to Antler, followed by a really candid conversation with Alexis. We'll dive into her founder journey and her experience building a company with Antler. If at any point during the conversation you have any questions, please feel free to contribute by addressing them in the chat. And we'll also have some dedicated time for Q&A at the end if anyone wants to come off of mute at the end to ask any of your burning questions then. So before we kick off, I would just like to I'd like to go over some housekeeping. So please mute yourself if you're not speaking, just so we can avoid any background noise. And if possible, please turn your camera on so that we know who we're speaking to. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to invite Rani from Antler to moderate today's conversation. So Rani, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Nina. Hi, everyone. So lovely to see some familiar faces online tonight, but also welcome for some of the new faces I see online tonight as well. I'm Rani. I'm the community manager and scouting here at Antler. I've been working with founders for the past few years. More recently, before Antler, I spearhead the global competition series at She Loves Tech. It was really dedicated to provide a visibility for women-led and women impact startups all over the globe in over 70 countries. So it's been really a personal mission and professional mission of mine to close the gender funding gap. And I'm excited to join Antler earlier this year to continue with that mission. Been around the ecosystem mainly from Southeast Asia for the past few years. It's a pleasure to continue building the ecosystem here down under since I moved over here 2 years ago. But who are we and what are we doing here at Antler? So Antler, first and foremost, we are a venture capital firm. We are actually the most active pre-seed investors globally today, according to PitchBook. And we are here in the business to enable and invest in the most exceptional people building defining companies of tomorrow. Antler was founded in 2018 by a team of seasoned entrepreneurs in Singapore, and Australia was actually one of the second locations Antler open. We have grown since then. We are now in 25 locations across 6 continents, and we have assets under management of over $1 billion. And we have made more than 800 investments to date. And excitingly, in Australia, we are now in both Sydney and Melbourne, and we are opening a 3rd location soon. And we have invested in 100 companies. We are now starting to deploy from our 2nd fund, and we are definitely here to stay to invest in 100 more or more beyond that. But we at Antler, we are proud to be a day zero investor. We are really early stage. And what it means is that when we are truly founder first, and we run this residency program to really partner with diverse and exceptional founders to build and launch their companies with us. And we know that human rarely fit nicely into boxes, but we try to look for these three main archetypes when we build the cohort. So we look for the tech and product builders that can actually build a product. We look for the business and operators who are commercially minded, who have sold and exited businesses before. And we also look for the domain expert who have deep expertise in certain niche or industry. So together, with them, we build a melting pot of exceptional people having a go at building a VC backable business. Founders join us from leading companies and institutions. These are just some of the more recognizable logos that you can see here in the slide, but we do recognize that the people, exceptional founders, comes from all different backgrounds, which is why we are proud of the stats that we have here, that we attract more mature founders as well, with like at least 11 years or so work experience. We have invested in at least 38% of the companies that we've backed so far have at least one female co-founder. We have 57% serial entrepreneurs as part of the cohort so far, and we have partnered with people from over 65 nationalities. So this is particularly exciting because we at Antler are really here to remove barriers to entrepreneurship, especially for those disproportionately affected by it. And we also try to, again, build a melting pot, right? That's why we always try to have a balance between the tech or domain experts versus the business and ops experts in the cohort. We are truly agnostic. This is again to emphasize that we are really founder first, so we don't really shy away from any particular industries, and this is also why we have such a strong statistics in backing female founders, because we don't shy away, for example, from a consumer tech domain, which are dominated more by women. But of course, we've seen women build businesses all across industries. Just to speak a bit more on the track record of Antler investing in women, we know that diversity is important, and in order for us to invest in diverse founders, we need to ensure that we have diversity represented at the other side of the table. We make sure that we have diversity represented on the decision makers themselves. So to make sure that we have a fair, more equitable investment decision, we make sure that we have women in the team. So as alongside the diversity metrics we have on the Antler portfolio here, you can see that at Antler team, we have 48 nationalities represented globally. We are in 25 locations, as you know, and 41% of the team we have at Antler are actually identified as women, while 35% women hold leadership positions at Antler. Just to speak more on the track record of investing in women again. So over the last 4 years, we have interviewed over 8,000. We have screened over 8,000 applications. And as a day zero investor, we know that we are uniquely positioned to impact the gender mix of founders at the very top of the funnel. Now we know that it's a more complicated and more complex issue than that. But again, it's one of the things that have been discussed over and over again by VCs. At least they say that they don't see enough women founders building companies at the top of the funnel. So we're here to demystify that, and we're here to actually be part of the solution. So we know as a day zero investor, we are uniquely positioned for that. So as you can see here, it's really encouraging to see how the numbers actually increases as we go through the funnel. From the 8,000 applications that we screen at Antler, we have partnered with over 500 founders, and we have invested in over 100 teams, as I said before. 25% of these 500 founders identify as women. But then again, the number increases when it comes to the invested companies. So actually from these 100 teams, 37% of them have at least one women co-founder. And it increased again because these 37% companies accounted the 39% companies that we actually follow on investment in, because at Antler we actually follow on with our investment, and we have capacity to invest up till Series C as you go along your company building journey. And 80% of Antler portfolio companies actually raise follow-on funding generally within 12 months. So being invested by Antler actually increase your chance of securing external funding apart from our funding. And so far over the last 4 years, our portfolio companies have raised more than 100 million externally. And from this 100 million, 24 million of those actually raised by companies with at least one women co-founder. I know that as women, at least it's true for me that we can't really be what we can see. So at Antler, we are proud to have back exceptional women driving solutions across industries. And these are just some of the examples of those exceptional women. And we'll hear soon from one of them as well. Yeah, as you can see here, they build companies across industries, from HR tech to InsurTech to consumer tech to B2B SaaS. And today, actually, it's my pleasure to invite Alexis to the floor today to actually share with you a bit more about her founder journey. So Alexis, maybe as a start, why don't you just tell the audience a bit about yourself, your background prior joining Antler, and why did you apply to Antler?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis, and as you know, I'm the co-founder of Sorted. And we could get into Sorted a little bit later, but just in terms of my background, I come from less of a traditional, I guess, founder background as described by Rani earlier, but I came from a law background, worked in commercial law for a couple of years. Both me and my co-founder actually both come from disparate backgrounds. She was a film and theatre producer, but I always had a passion for fashion, which is kind of where Sorted is right now, but also for entrepreneurship. And here we are today. Yeah.
Love that. And I love how you emphasize that you came from a non-conventional background. But again, we don't exclude those people, right? Because as I say, exceptional people come from all over the world, all over background. If we, I guess, talking a bit more about Sorted, do you want to share to the audience here what was your why? So what was the specific problem does it aim to solve? And maybe you can also share about this encouraging traction that you've achieved so far. I know you shared that with us recently.
Yeah, sure. So Sorted is what we like to call a decision-making platform. It's where online shoppers come to get inspired, compare their options, decide, and ultimately buy. But Sorted really came out of my co-founders' personal experiences and grievances when it came to the online shopping experience. So as online shoppers, we were getting hit with products and options from everywhere, from the internet, Instagram, TikTok, Google. It was absolutely everywhere, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to keep track of our options, and then in turn decide what to buy. Our phones were filled with screenshots, our computers were filled with screenshots, folders, spreadsheets, if you can believe it. And really how it all began was that just for context, my co-founder Jo, she and I are childhood friends. So she was over at my house one day and I had my laptop open and she saw just 100 tabs open on my Safari screen. You couldn't even see what it was, just little X's. And that kind of just spurred a conversation where she was like, what are you doing? Like, that's a ridiculous way. And I was like, well, what do you do? She's like, well, I've got screenshots. And then, that just spurred into a conversation. She was like, it's 2020. This is a few years ago. She's like, there's an app, there's something for this. And when we kind of realized there wasn't really a sufficient solution that solved our own problems, we took matters into our own hands. It really was just a bit of a side project. We built it for us and our friends. We took a little loan out to get it going. And it wasn't until we reached our first 500 users that we were like, okay, this might be more of a universal experience than we thought. And that was, under a different name, a different product. Our current product has been live for about a year, and that's where we really started to see those positive signs of traction and early signs of success. Today, we have over 15,000 users. We have close to 400,000 items saved to wishlist. I didn't mention it, Sorted's a wish list ultimately. So 400,000 items saved to wish list, and some really great signs over the past couple of months. We've seen a 300% quarter-on-quarter growth. And yeah, it's been a bit of a journey.
Exciting. You're out there in the wild building your company. So it's been like over, I guess, 3 years now since you first started off with the ideation and stuff. If you take a look back, last year when you actually decided to join Antler, what prompted that? At what point in your, I guess, ideation, that you need sort of a strategic partner to go along this journey with?
So because we'd been working on it part-time, we'd never put enough effort into it to really grow this thing. And Jodine said to me one day, she was like, Lex, something's got to change. Like, either we're going in on this, either we back ourselves, we go 100%, or, that's it. We can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so we realized something had to change, but we also realized we didn't know the first thing about capital raising, or how to properly build, or how to properly pitch, or how to properly position the business. So we didn't know we needed some help until we researched into different programs and different strategic partners. We did our due diligence. We looked at all the programs available to us. Antler felt like the right fit for us, and we just took the plunge. We quit our jobs May last year and joined Antler, and we were super excited to get in. Was super nervous, but it was the best thing we could have ever done for Sorted.
Awesome, love that. How was the journey like for you? Like, actually transitioning from that and taking that leap to get into this like very like pressure cooking environment, like a very like investment process where you get into like almost like a startup school. How was that for you looking back?
Oh, we were so excited. Like, we were gung-ho in the program. Like, we were just so excited to be 100% in on it. When we joined the program, we didn't just do the days or do the sessions that we needed to do. From day one, we were like full-time on Sorted. It was scary, and like, I think early on we were like, what do we do? Like, how do we fill our days, and how do we, but it was really amazing to have direction. We had a goal, because ultimately the program is 10 weeks and you have one goal, and that's to get to IC. And so we work really well with direction, and we work really well with a target and a goal. And that's how we realized, like, that's how we strive in those types of environments. So while it was scary, we were just so ready. So it was awesome.
Love that. Yeah, just to also, I guess, chime in on this, we know at Antler we have a melting pot of people, and like some of these people actually come up from a very experienced, I guess, startup background, your usual sort of more, I guess, traditional background, the usual startup founders you see in the space. But also we have people like Alexis that actually took the leap from a non sort of conventional background and actually have this experience of being almost in a startup school. That's why we actually dedicated the first few weeks of the program really to go through all the VC 101, all the metrics behind building an early stage businesses, what it takes to validate, what's the early sign of like product market fit and stuff like that. And actually that brings me into my next question to you, Alexis. Have you always known that it's a VC backable business per se when you started ideating out of nowhere with your dean there?
No, definitely not. Again, like it just comes back to how we started. It was very organic, sorted. It wasn't really about building a VC backable business. It was about building something to help us with. And so we set out to solve our own problems. And I think like the first 500 users that we that came into the app, that kind of, we were like, okay, we're onto something. And that really kind of spurred us into looking at what a startup meant and what the VC world was like. And then we spoke to everyone that we could. And each person gave us little snippets of advice. You know, someone would say, okay, build a business plan. Okay, what's involved in a business plan? Well, you've got things like competitive landscape, and you've got things like business model. So we started to look at what other players in the market were doing. And then we, you know, when we looked at the business model, it's like, oh, we could make money from this. Oh, it's a business. So, and then so as we went deeper and deeper and did more research and spoke to more people, we realized that we had built a startup somehow. And then it was only until we joined Antler, went through the program, and ultimately were successful with the fundraising, where we were like, oh, okay, this is actually a VC backable business. Like we could grow this, we could scale this. So our journey was very organic. You know, now we're confident that it's VC backable, but we didn't have that kind of, I guess, knowledge even of what that meant until kind of later on.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the residency itself, right? Because we onboard people that have more often they have a particular sort of problem space they're passionate about, that they wanted to disrupt. So they really fall in love with the problem there, but they're not sure what the solution around it, whether or not the solution that they build is potentially VC backable. And that's actually a part of the journey that you're gonna go through in the program, because then you're gonna build your own conviction whether or not what you build is actually that VC backable. So it's more of a buzzword, but we actually delve deeper into it in the residency itself as well. So thanks for sharing that, Alexis. But again, everyone, this is for you to really ask questions to Alexis. So if you have any burning questions or anything like that, pop in the chat box, or feel free to, I guess, raise your hand and unmute as well, so I can prompt you to ask the questions right away. I think we have one already in the chat box. Let me just see here. All right, so yeah, I was about to go into this as well, but I think Dre has a question here, Alexis, around we all know that there are challenges for women within the VC landscape. Did you even experience that challenge that made you think, is this a gender thing? I think we discussed about this before as well. But yeah, do you want to go into that?
Yeah, sure. So we experience both. Generally, it's a challenging time to fundraise, and I think most founders will come into challenges. For us, and I'll just talk on kind of the challenges that kind of came to us directly from what we feel was gender. The experiences that we had. So one thing, I've spoken on a different Antler panel about this, because I feel like it's our best kind of example of this, but you know, we're solving a problem that statistically, or like majority of people who will experience what we're trying to solve is going to be women. And so very early on, speaking to investors, majority male investors, and we got a lot of like, you know, oh, I don't get it, or like, that's not really a problem, or like, I don't think that many people will, you know, relate to this, or I don't think your product has like universal value. So those were kind of the initial things, but I think one thing that female founders will statistically it's been proven that female founders experience preventative questions more than their male counterparts, and that's really where things will be kind of positioned in a way that are asking you about how you're going to fail rather than how you're going to succeed, or at least that's how I understand it. Rachel, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but once we were in a pitch and we had gone through, and then in the questions it was positioned to us, okay, well, how what's going to stop two men in the UK from copying your idea and doing it better than you? And we were like, and it, like, at the time, fully fumbled over that question, like didn't really know what to say. But in hindsight, it's it was about, okay, what are they actually asking us? And they were asking us about competitive landscape and differentiation. And that to me like encompasses the experience of women kind of in the VC world trying to solve problems that directly relate to themselves, and that's always going to be a barrier. But it's really important to remember that if you are passionate about your business and if you genuinely believe that you are the right person to solve it, well, no one can do it better than us. Like nothing's going to stop those men from doing it, but we're going to do it better, and just backing yourselves. And one thing, it is a challenge, just to answer your question, I'm just reading in the chat. Do I think it's a gender thing? I think it's both. But I also think it's what you make it. Like you just have to back yourself and get people to believe in you as a founder, not because you're a female founder, not because you're a male founder, but because you know what you're doing. Surround yourself with the right people, prove yourself. And I think that's not a gender thing. I think everyone should put their best foot forward, and
Yeah. I love that how you sort of recognize that it's both, right? It's not only a gender thing, but generally speaking, it is really hard to like fundraise externally. It is a whole different game, and especially I guess it's just like statistically, women has a more disproportionate sort of challenges faced as well. So yeah, also going back to the preventative questions, this is also something that we'll cover as well in the residency program, because we recognize how women are more often asked preventative questions than men. Right. I think also Alexis has a question here in the chat box around co-founder. So did you find a tech co-founder there? How did you find your tech support? I think, yeah, you covered around how you and Jodine sort of like team up together from childhood friends. I'm pretty sure there's a lot to unpack there, like the transition from childhood friends to like co-founder relationship as well. But I think the question here is around your tech support, right? Because that's not a skill set that you have in the team. So how did you go around it?
Yeah, that's a challenge. We came into Antler thinking that we would find a co-founder, and while many people in our cohort did, we didn't. And so certainly it was a challenge, particularly coming out of the program and ready, wanting to jump straight into building this product that we had spent all this time validating. Our tech support, we do have a team. We have an outsourced team along with a technical advisor here in Australia. We've upskilled a lot so we can manage the product 100%. At first we were managing it through like spreadsheets and notes and things. And so upskilling, it has been really important to managing the product correctly. And we took a lot of time to find the right tech team. We've taken a lot of time to find the right technical advisor and consultant. Every company is different, but that's just kind of the way that that's how we've approached it. And certainly, pending hopefully another successful fundraising round, that will be kind of our first hire is bringing, or first few hires is bringing our tech in-house, as well as kind of bringing on some sort of technical lead or CTO, whatever that might look like.
Exciting. Exciting stuff's going on. I would like to take on a few more questions, but before that, maybe Nina or Rachel, you can also help like answering some of the questions on the chat box there. But I would like to go back to where it began. It's sorted. I think at Antler we always over-index on idea validation, right, during the process. So I would love to know more from you. What was that look like for you in terms of the idea validation process itself, and what were some of the key learnings you had during that process?
Sure. So in terms of validation, we went a bit backwards because we dove right into building an MVP based on our gut and our personal experience. We didn't validate it with the wider market, which I don't necessarily recommend doing. Those 500 users, I keep referring to them, but they were really integral. We hadn't spoken to them. We didn't know who they were. We didn't know why they were using the product, what we were doing, were we even helping them? And so that was one of the first things that we learned in Antler, and that was, you know, the value of speaking to your audience or speaking to your users, and conducting user interviews. And so we gained a lot of, you know, the necessary tools to be able to conduct user interviews, and through that we were able to get closer to a product that we were confident could be launched into market. And that actually, that key learning still guides us through to today. You know, we're a consumer facing company, so we rely heavily on our users to tell us what they want and what we're not delivering on. So, you know, finding product market fit, it's no small feat. We're still trying, we're still working towards it. So with every user, we learn more. We have mechanisms in place in the product to help us learn from our users. And I think like the biggest key learning is that you might feel like you're solving a problem, or you might feel that you have product market fit, but until you speak to your target customer, whether it's consumers or otherwise, until you know exactly where your business fits in and exactly how it's going to help people, and if it is helping people, if you're already in market, then you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle, and you're running blind. And we ran blind for a while, and you know, it's speak to your audience is really the biggest thing I can say.
Right. How has your product sort of evolved from your first MVP to what it is today?
Oh my gosh.
That's the question right there, right?
Worlds away. I mean, honestly, we look at screenshots or we look at the old product and we're like, literally looks like we designed it on paint, because we basically did, like, we did the UX ourselves, we drew it up, we like it wasn't great, but it did deliver. What's been great for us is that we've still actually kept like, I say we hadn't validated it before, but we actually just got validated in what we were building. We were very lucky in that way. So the product still, to an extent, does exactly what it does today. It was just very basic. It was very buggy. UX and UI was like non-existent. But it still did what it needed to do. But today it's much more sophisticated. There's a much larger feature set. It's you know, we've got analytics now. Back then we didn't. And so yeah, it's worlds away for sure.
Yeah. So the vision stays the same. Like the sort of the blueprint of the product stays the same.
Yeah, the blueprint has stayed the same. The vision has stayed the same to an extent. I think we've gotten more ambitious with the vision. I think we've reframed it in a way that makes sense for our team, and also, you know, for investors and a fundraising perspective, also for a scalability perspective. But like the core, for sure, it's kind of, we've stayed true to that.
Yeah. Love that. And you're now on to your 15K customers and over 300,000 items in the wish list. That's big. Congrats on that traction so far. I would like to also go back a bit more to the fundraising process, right? I think going a bit deeper into some actionable insights there from you. So how did you go about it in terms of structuring it, and how have you been able to attract significant backers at such an early stage of your company? As you've acknowledged before, you actually divide the odds, right, and statistically, as an all-women team. So how did you go about it?
So a lot of no's, that, you know, that's the baseline. You're going to get a lot of no's. For us, the key thing was, first, when we first started, we focused on building relationships. That's actually something my co-founder really pushed me on, because I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone, I'm embarrassed, or like, I don't think we know what we're doing. And she was like, shut up, get on the phone, we're meeting with this person. And so building relationships was really important, because then they could see our journey, they could see our grit, our tenacity, how hard we were working, the way we were evolving. And then when it came to fundraise, you know, they were willing to vouch for us or back us or whatever it might be. A lot of those people starting from 2020 are actually still with us on the journey today. So building relationships is super important. The next thing, like, I don't know if it works for everyone, but like, preparation is super, super important. Knowing your business better than absolutely anyone is so important. Like, I'll just talk to IC, because fundraising kind of goes in very different directions depending on who you are pitching to and who you're speaking to. If it's like a family office or an angel investor, and even some VCs, it's very conversational. Some VCs like Antler and, you know, I think Blackbird and a few others, it's very much like an IC. It's a big pitch and you're in front of a lot of people. When it came to kind of that structure for Antler, we were hyper prepared. Like, we were working on our deck from day one. We knew each slide back to front. We knew every question that could ever be asked based on every single point there and more. We practiced on different computers. We practiced in different rooms. We practiced to each other. We learned it. We learned the script. And that was what worked for us. And I think that was what, in our case, impressed a lot of people. I think particularly Antler, we were hyper prepared. So that is really important. And I think also being nimble and being able to learn from each meeting is really important, because once you leave the Antler program and once you're out in the big bad world and you're meeting VCs over a coffee and you're sending, you know, cold emails, you're going to get a lot of no's, as I said, and but each person is going to give you something actionable. Okay, well, I want to see this, or, well, what about this? Or, have you heard about this? Or, have you heard about this company? Or, have you thought about this? And it's really important to be susceptible to advice and feedback, and from every single meeting that you have, you know, take that to the next, go home, work on your deck, work on, you know, your points, and then go to the next one, and then you'll get another KPI. And remember these things, write them down, because this person can be a prospective investor for you next year or the year after. Hey, you said this, by the way, we've worked on it, and here, you know, here are our results, and here's what we've changed. And relationships are number one. Be relentless, speak to everyone. You never know, everyone has someone who knows someone who they're happy to introduce you to. And that's really how we found our lead investors, was someone made a relationship with in 2020, ended up introducing us to people last year who ended up investing over $1 million in our business. So it's really important to make those relationships, I think, and don't give up, really. Yeah.
The bottom line is being relentless. That's the bottom line there. And also, a relationship building is key. I think that's also what I've heard over and over again about relationship building. And also, I guess, you know, just be familiar with no's, and really it's about how you action on the potential yeses, right? And like, really like run through that. I think one of the questions we have in the chat box as well, this is actually interesting, is about how, I guess I lost it now, but I think we have a question around how did you, I guess, shortlist the potential sort of investors, and how did you go about choosing your potential investors as well? As we know, actually, as founders, you do have options, right? On like what investors you want on board to your business.
I don't think we had a shortlist. We would talk to anyone. Like, in fact, we spoke to some VCs who we knew don't invest in consumer facing, but we just thought they might have something to say. And we actually knew that we were up for a challenge when it came to consumer facing, because VCs tend to kind of avoid consumer facing businesses. I guess, like, we didn't have a short list, but we did do our due diligence. We looked at what are the companies that they have invested in. Do they align with our, does their kind of mission statement align with our business? Do we think that they're going to help us? But ultimately, if you can get a meeting with them, if you can find their email, meet with them anyway. Like that's what we did. So yes, we have options, but they're limited. It's a hard environment. Stacks, the cards are stacked against us as women, as female founders anyway. Like, just meet with everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's like a very candid answer right there. And especially you fundraise during such a difficult climate as well, generally, right? Last year was really such a difficult climate in general for like VC landscape. I would like to also go to Joanne. You have a question? You raise your hand there.
Yeah, look, thanks. Actually, that was my question, so I'll follow on from it. Because I'm actually coming at it from two slightly different angles. One, I'm actually a researcher in this space, so I'm always really interested to hear how founders approach funding. But I'm also part of Sydney Angels. I'm also sort of part of an angel investor as well. So I'm just always curious as to how the mechanisms, the decisions founders make when they're approaching funding. And I guess in your case, I guess you got funding. You were after. I'm sort of interested why you went sort of for VC versus angel, or you just kind of had more of a scattergun approach.
So we actually didn't end up in our pre-seed round post Antler. It actually wasn't VC funded. We spoke to VCs, and that's why I said you get a lot of no's. We got a lot of no's. But we reached out. We went across the board. So we spoke to angels, we spoke to family offices, and we spoke to VCs. It wasn't the right time for VCs. In hindsight, I understand it. Like, we had no traction. And VCs do tend to, want to come in a little bit later unless you're, like Antler, or unless you, the next Afterpay. That, at least that was our experience. So I'm glad you answered this question, because I feel like I didn't get to touch on it. Like, you can't, don't sleep on angel investors and syndicates and family offices, because they will, they have different approaches to fundraising, and we were very lucky. Our round got funded by angel investors and family offices. So it's really important to do it all. So when I say speak to everyone, I don't just mean VCs, I mean everyone. And I think also, when you go down that angel and family office route, you can really foster really strong relationships with people who will ultimately be your first believers before that next VC round. Things change, and it's important to have your first believers and, have really strong relationships with your investors and people that you can lean on. Sure, you can be strategic, and look for strategic investors if they, come from an angel family office background that have experience in what you're working on, and that's always a plus. But again, just cast your net out wide.
Thanks.
Love that. Love how you have to have a balance between being strategic and also just like go out there and see what's available, right? I think I would also just touch a bit more, I guess. We all know, we've heard this over again, that women are underrepresented in the ecosystem, in the startup ecosystem. What do you reckon are some of the barriers? I guess being a women founder yourself, especially coming from an unconventional, I guess, background, what are some of the barriers you see that prevents women from actually becoming founders?
So I mean, I think there's a few. I think, statistically 3% of startups are founded by women. So, that's a really daunting statistic, and you feel like, well, it's kind of setting you up for failure. It's also quite a male-dominated world. You've got every fintech and VC, you've got guys walking around in, like, I don't know, North Face jackets and Ugg boots. Like, they're all men. And no offense to the men in the room, love you all, but it is very male dominated. And, especially, and I'll say it again, when you are setting out to solve a problem that affects predominantly women, and you're getting a no from a man who doesn't understand it, it's very easy to be like, oh, and okay, no, maybe it's not a universal problem, or maybe you're right. So I think just the kind of the perception of business, of startups, of VC, of finance, it's very male dominated, but I think we are moving the needle. And I think like building a startup is not about just like wanting to build a startup. It's not about just like wanting to be a business owner. Like if you are passionate, then absolutely nothing can stop you from, you know, achieving what you set out to achieve. You didn't really ask on like tips, but like one thing I can say is that like the imposter syndrome is real. And so I think you just got to, again, first, if you're passionate, then you need to dive right in. If you can, and then focus on confidence building, like fake it till you make it. Because as women, we are sometimes, you know, the assumption is that maybe we don't know, you know, maybe don't have what it takes. Prove to everyone that you have what it takes, even if you feel like you don't. Like just fake it till you make it. You know, don't be the loudest person in the room, but, you know, make people, you know that you know what you're talking about. And I think that's super important.
Yeah. And I guess also a plug here that we recognize that we need to move the needle, and there's like, it's a chicken and egg problem. Like we need to move the needle, we need like all sort of like spectrum of the ecosystem to be able to level the playing field. But we at Antler, we're here in the business to also, I guess, be a part of the solution there, really to remove the barriers to entrepreneurship as much as possible. So what would you say to if you're speaking to someone who's like on the fence to take that plunge into like being a founder? What would you say to them?
Okay. Well, I would first say like it's not easy. Like it's not for the faint-hearted. It is really difficult. It takes a lot of work. So I one thing, male or female, like you need to be really sure that this is what you want to do and that you are willing to put 100% in to make this work. Because if you're not doing it, no one else is going to do it. So straight up, you need to understand that this is a ride and you're in it for the long haul. They say that some investor relationships with startups last longer than the typical marriage. Like this is a long road. But what I would say is if you are on the fence about it, particularly as a female, I would say surround yourself with the right people. I would find a mentor. I would speak to other female founded companies, learn from them, surround yourself into kind of like a safe space where you feel like you are represented, that you are protected, that you have people to talk to. And that goes for any founder. Like having a community of other people is super important. But ultimately, because I just love what I do, I would say just go for it. Like just do it. Join Antler and give it a try for 10 weeks. You know, just give it your best red hot go and take it from there.
Love that. It's not easy, but do it anyway.
Yeah.
Join Antler. There is one question here going back to the fundraising. I think this is actually get asked a lot as well. This is from Misa about how teach you as co-founders, how did you freaking split the energy between fundraising and running a business?
That's a hard one, because when we fundraised last year, we were kind of laser focused on fundraising, which I think, you know, we could have done a better job at balancing the business. I think we got to a point, you know, where it was, you know, 2 days before Black Friday and we hadn't launched the product yet. But we had raised, and, you know, we launched at that time and we got completely lost up in, you know, the busyness of Black Friday. So, you know, it's something we've had to learn over time. Now we're kind of starting that up again. And a few ways we've done it is, you both can't be everywhere all at once. So splitting up our responsibilities and having control over certain domains in the business is really important, so that you know that if I'm doing something, I know and I trust that Joe and the rest of our team are focused on something else, or, you know what they need to do. Fundraising, it's absolutely exhausting, but I really think splitting up your time, I work really well on, you know, my Google Calendar is my Bible. Set some time aside for yourself, set some time aside for, you know, all the other areas of the business. Spread your meetings with, you know, your prospective investors, you know, across the week. You know, don't pile them all in on a few days. Take care of yourself and just trust that as a team, you can split your responsibilities and just have airtight goals. Say, okay, well, you know, by X day, you know, the deck needs to be done. And by the following week, we're going to have cold emailed 10 people. You take 5, I take 5, go. From there, it's like, okay, let's set up our meetings over the next 3 weeks. Let's do them every 2 or 3 days. And I think really important to remember that burnout is real, and that life will go on, your business will go on, things will happen. You need to relax, and we made this mistake. So if a VC says, hey, I can meet with you, or anyone says, hey, I can meet with you tomorrow at 2 p.m. and you know that the rest of your day is full, don't say, no, we have to do it. Get back to them and say, you know what, tomorrow doesn't work. Are you available next week? Like, protect yourself first, because if you burn out, then no one's there to run the business. And just another thing on Antler is that they actually really prepare fundraising. Like, you'll become, in terms of what it comes to, in terms of, you know, your deck and the kind of questions that get asked and the things you need to be prepared for, Antler really prepares you for that. So if you kind of know what to expect and your deck is ready and you've got your arsenal, you know, your research and everything, like you'll be fine. Just take care of yourself and find, I don't know if that answered, because you're like, how do I do it? And I'm like, just do it. But you'll
Actually very reassuring. You'll be fine. It's exhausting, it's hard, but you'll be fine.
yeah, like, go for breakfast with your mom before work, you know, take a walk on lunch, have an early night every so often. Like, you'll find that balance.
Yeah, that's real answer right there. I think we can take one more question from the audience if anyone has any closing questions. Rachel, maybe you have anything to add to the discussion? A
Well,
shout out?
I'm wondering how it got to this late, and you've still not done me a shout out, really, Lex. So rude.
Rachel,
My-
I'm going to.
My first babies, and you've already forgot.
Are you mad? Never.
Just no, not mad, just disappointed.
The one thing I can say is, when those 10 weeks at Antler, you really have to make the most of it. Rely on the team. And I'm not just saying this, like, people like Rachel are so instrumental to your experience there. The female founder catch up every Friday, when I spoke about like having a community and a mentor, like those days were great, because we'd get to the end of the week and we'd get on this call and sometimes we'd have a glass of wine and everyone would be like, oh my gosh, I've had a day. And then you just vent and you'd have that. And it's really important to have community and people to talk to, not just in, you know, not just in the startup world, just generally, but especially when pressure is high, you find those people that you can, you know, find solace in. And Rachel, you definitely were that for us. And
Totally redeemed yourself. Okay.
That's it, Rach, the long overdue shout out. But yeah, what Alexis mentioned there is this Women of Endless session that we run weekly. So we acknowledge that, you know, entrepreneurship is such a lonely journey, and it's even lonelier for the group, the minority we have who identifies as women in the cohort. So we run this session weekly, really to sort of build a supportive sort of community around it. So we got your back if you do come to the residency and join us. So what's next for Sorted, Alexis?
What's next for Sorted? I mean, we're constantly in the zoomed in and zoomed out state. So what's directly next is we're just focused on getting through, you know, the Christmas shopping period, Boxing Day, getting through the year, but at the same time also focused on what will hopefully be a super successful fundraising round for us. So really focused on, you know, what are the KPIs we need to hit? What are the things we need to prove? at this point in the journey who is on our hit list and really focusing on that. So zoomed in, zoomed out, but in terms of what you could expect to see physically from Sorted, going back to the comment earlier about user validation and speaking to your audience, something really integral that we've learned is that we were missing, well, we weren't necessarily missing it, but we weren't hitting the mark on a key value proposition, which is the idea that people love to shop together in real life, and we want to give them the ability to do so digitally. And we have this mechanism in the app, but it wasn't being quite used. So it's a super important missing piece of our puzzle that we're going to be working on. We hope that that is not just something that we're going to deliver for our users, but something that will help us unlock virality, which is super important, our network effects, and also, continue to differentiate us from other players in the market. So that's coming soon, but 100 things on the go always, and let's be fingers crossed for our seed round next year. And that's really kind of where we're at right now.
You probably need to get me on the ESOP list before next raise, right? That's on the to-do list.
I got you.
My girl.
Exciting, and we're here rooting for you, Alexis. Thank you so much for your time today. So everyone, for those of you inspired to follow the steps of Alexis and Jodine and follow and apply to Antler and be a part of this, I've popped in some links in the chat box there to learn more about Antler and our platform, as well as a link to actually apply to build a business with us. So that's it for today. If you have any following questions, feel free to, connect with Alexis as well as Rachel and I on LinkedIn. I think we pop in a few links there in the chat box, or you can always just find us on LinkedIn anyway. But thank you so much for joining us today. So may you have a good rest of your night. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now, and we hope to see you in the application process.
Bye.
Nice to see you, my love.
Bye, everyone.